So Ramayana is the gold standard of Ramayana is Valmiki Ramayana, but there are many versions of Ramayana, and Sukadev Goswami alludes to it when he talks about in the ninth canto the pastimes of Lord Ram, and he refers to it in the plural. And even at that time, there were many authorized versions of Ramayana and many unauthorized versions of Ramayana. So, why are there many authorized versions? It's because different versions of the Ramayana, they have stress on different aspects of the pastime. And another understanding also is that because Lord Ram comes once in a day of Brahma, there is what is known as Kalpabhed. That when he comes, there are slight differences in his pastimes in subsequent days. So there may be Ramayans that are referring to different appearances of Lord Ram. There is also what is known as a Mool Ramayana. The Mool Ramayana is 1 billion verses, and it was initially given by Lord Brahma to Narad Muni, and subsequently Narad Muni gave it to Valmiki in what is known as Sankshep Ramayana, which he actually condensed the 1 billion verses to 28 verses. And Valmiki then, meditating on those 28 verses, wrote Valmiki Ramayana, which has 14,000 verses. And the other Ramayana that is famous in India is by Tulsidas. It's Ramcharitramanas. And Srila Prabhupada at various times, he would discourage devotees or his disciples from referring to it because there are traces of impersonalism in it. Now, Tulsidas, of course, was a great devotee and dedicated to Lord Ram, but for reasons that are not clear, at least to me, he chose to write slightly impersonal aspects in it. So, Srila Prabhupada and generally Vaishnavas, especially Sri Vaishnavas and Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they do not refer to it. So, Ramayana is an itihas, which means it's an history of the Lord, just like Mahabharata. And just like Mahabharata, it carries within it many, many messages that commentators over time, because of their own devotions and realizations, they have churned it and presented to us for our own benefit. So in Ramayana, we see this very powerful Suryavanshi king Dashrath, who was undefeated for 60,000 years. He did not have, he used to be called by the demigods to help them. His name was Dashrath because it is said that when he attacked the enemy, it was as if there were 10 chariots that were attacking. So he was actually helping the demigods fight with the Asuras. And he ruled Ayodhya. The word Ayodhya means one that cannot be defeated. Yodha means warrior. Ayodhya means beyond the capability of a warrior. And then he dies alone. He dies alone in a very miserable state. His sons are not around him at the time, and he is racked with guilt because of the promises that he had made to Kaikeyi. So Lord Ram had gone out, was banished along with Lakshman. Bharat and Shatrughan were not there; they were in Kaikeyi in the Kaikeyi Desh at the time. So all alone he faced. He was at the end, and to a great extent, that is the situation for all the living entities. That regardless of whatever opulence or wealth or family that they have, at the time of death, it's a journey that one has to undertake by themselves. So people may live lives hoarding things, but when they die, then all those things are left behind. So if you go to the museums in London, then you see this hoarding very proudly displayed over there. They have the Kohinoor over there, and they basically say from India, and they don't say stolen from India, but that is implicit over here. Then they have the sword of Maharana Pratap over there, and not just from India, from many countries, but a lot of it is from India. And Srila Prabhupada once made this comment that the Britishers came and stole so many things from us, but they forgot to steal the most important thing, which is our spiritual heritage. So now I have come here to give them that you have stolen so many things, now take this also. He was asked that, what are you, when he was preaching in Britain. In the pastime of Ramayana, we also see that when Lord Ram appeared, everybody was completely attracted towards him. So the Ram is the root from Ramyate, and Ramyate means that one who gives indescribable pleasure, ocean of pleasure. And not just Lord Ram's biological mother, Kaushalya, but even Kekai, even the other co-wives of Dashrath, they loved Lord Ram more than their own children, more than their own the children born of them. That's the nature of the personality of Godhead, that everybody is attracted. So Krishna is also a Karshan. So everybody is attracted to Krishna. There are some who are attracted to Krishna in his original form, and then there are some who are attracted to Krishna through their conditioned eyes. So they are attracted to Krishna's external energy, but they are all attracted to Krishna. So everybody is completely attracted to Lord Ram. When Lakshman and Shatrughan were infants, then the parents noticed that Lakshman and Shatrughan, when they were put to sleep, they were constantly crying. So finally what they discovered was that only when Lakshman was put next to Lord Ram and Shatrughan put next to Bharat did they stop crying there. So the word Lakshman, a couple of meanings. One of the meaning of word Lakshman is Laksha Mana. So Laksha means goal. So Lakshman was very, very fixed. He was very single-mindedly fixed in his goal, which was service to Lord Ram. Nothing could deviate from him. When Dashrath had asked Lord Ram to leave, then Lakshman, he was willing to go and kill his own father. He was so angry. And then Lord Ram chastised him. And later on when Bharat came, then Lakshman again, he said, he's definitely come to attack you again. Before he comes, let me go and kill him. and then Lord Ram pacified. So it's not that Lakshman was whimsical or he was bloodthirsty, but he was single-mindedly focused on his devotion to Lord Ram. And because of that, he was never deprived of the association of Lord Ram. Whether Lord Ram was in the palace, whether he was with Vishwamitra, whether he was in the jungle, whether he was ruling Ayodhya, the one personality that never leaves the side of Lord Ram is Lakshman. So that's the position of the jivas also. That when the jivas become single-minded in their devotion to the Lord, then the Lord will carry them along with themselves, along with him, everywhere. Another meaning of the word Lakshman is Lakshmi Sampanna. So Lakshmi Sampanna means that one who is full of opulence. But the Lakshmi here is the spiritual Lakshmi Devi, who is essentially representing the opulence of bhakti. So if you see the nature of Lakshman, Lakshman is a Kshatriya, and the nature of Kshatriya is not to serve. Right? The nature of Kshatriya is to take service. That's why in the kingdom, when the kings had sons, they would divide the kingdom between the sons. Even though dividing the kingdom would make it weaker, but Kshatriyas were not, they are not trained, it's not the nature. So the king could not say that let the elder brother be the king and all of you rule under him. So they would divide the kingdom. But Lakshman, being a powerful Kshatriya, but without any hesitation, he was rendering all kinds of service to Lord Ram. And he was enjoying that service immensely. So it's not that he was doing it with resentment or because there was no other alternative. So that is the key to the search for happiness. That happiness in itself is something it's a consequence. It's not something that you can attain it in itself. You cannot say that now I will become happy. But what you can say is now I will do these things that will make me happy. So there are only two things or two category of things that we can do: service or sense gratification. When we do service, the result is happiness. When we engage in sense gratification, the result is sorrow. Lakshman was engaged in service all his life. And because of that, he had unbroken association with Lord Ram and immense happiness. Same thing for Jiva. That all the Jivas are instinctively running after this happiness. Because it's the nature of the soul to be happy. It's the nature of the soul to be Anandamayi. So whatever is intrinsic to the soul, it also manifests even in the conditioned nature. Like it's not the nature of the soul to die. The soul is eternal. That is why even in the conditioned form, the jiva is not able to comprehend death. Even though they are surrounded by death, people around them are dying, but the mortality of the self is always an intellectual concept. It's never an experiential concept. Because it's not the nature of the soul to experience death. Similarly, happiness is the intrinsic nature of the soul, and the corollary to that is that service is the intrinsic nature of the soul. When the conditioned soul deviates from that into sense gratification, then the happiness gets converted into misery. Now, of course, these messages can be discussed in the association of devotees, but it is difficult to make these points in a wider circle. And Srila Prabhupada was an expert in presenting these messages in a way that the message was also given, and the attraction to the process was also there. So there were 4 things that Srila Prabhupada, by personal example, would demonstrate and also encourage in those who were taking to the process, which resulted in immense success. In a way, as it is said that Prabhupada was an expert in everything. He was an expert manager, expert financier, expert kirtanier, expert cook. And so it said that the difference between a stressed manager and a good manager is that a stressed manager catches people doing the wrong thing, and a good manager catches people doing the right thing. And Prabhupada had this habit of catching people doing the right thing. So one thing that we see in Prabhupada is this this sense of strong humility. Once one of his earlier disciples, Shamsundar Prabhu, once came to Prabhupada, and Shamsundar Prabhu, before he became a disciple, it was a different time in the 60s. There was a lot of drugs and all that. So Shamsundar Prabhu had been caught dealing with drugs. The case was going on, and the case was going to be adjudicated. So he knew that he was going to go to prison. So he went to Prabhupada and says, Prabhupada, I have to go to jail. And Prabhupada said, that's all right. Even Krishna was born in jail. And then Prabhupada says that, why are you going to jail? And then Shamsundar Prabhu said, I was dealing in drugs. And Prabhupada said, oh, even I used to deal in drugs. Prabhupada used to run a pharmacy in India. So Shamsundar Prabhu shares that when I went into the room, I was feeling that I'm no longer going to continue with my journey. Because where is Prabhupada and where is me going to be a prison convict? But Prabhupada had with so much of humility. So you can see at one point he's comparing Shamsundar Prabhu with Krishna. Other point he's comparing him with himself. And then we can see, of course, that Shamsundar Prabhu was so inspired. So this humility and then appreciation. Prabhupada was very, very strong in genuine appreciation of his disciple. So one of his disciples, she was an artist, and then she made this painting of Radha Krishna, and by mistake she painted Radharani. So generally it's Radharani offering a garland to Krishna, but she painted Radharani offering the garland in an other direction, as if outside to somebody else. And then Prabhupada looked at the painting and said, oh, Radharani has some other boyfriend? And the disciple said, no, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said, no, 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 you didn't make a mistake. Actually, Radharani is offering you a garland for your service. And that immediately put her in an ecstatic mood. So Prabhupada was famous in practicing these 5 things: appreciation, recognition. He gave a lot of creative freedom. We see that when the temples were being constructed, when the programs were being organized, he would give general guidance, but then he would not interfere. And his more senior disciples like Shyam Sundar Prabhu, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, they had a lot of latitude in taking care of the specifics. So he gave a lot of creative freedom. So appreciation, recognition, creative freedom, enthusiasm, humility. Humility is also strong. Once disciple of Prabhupada was making samosas, and as soon as she made a samosa and put it, Prabhupada ate it. She was actually making samosas to pack for him to go. He was traveling, but as soon as she would make it, he would eat it. And then she made another one and he ate it again. She made another one, he ate it again. And then she said, Prabhupada, how many samosas you can eat? So Prabhupada said that more samosas than you can make. So the disciple was very happy, and so that Prabhupada is appreciating my cooking so much. And she said, Prabhupada, who's the best cook? And Prabhupada said, I am. So example of teaching humility, that one should not get too proud of the service. So that is Lakshman. Lakshman is fixed in his goal. He is fixed in his service to Krishna, full of the opulence of bhakti, and he is rewarded by constant, uninterrupted association with the personality of Godhead. Then we come to Bharat. So what does the word Bharat mean? So Bhar means weight, and Bharat means that one who carries a lot of weight. So in Ramayana we see that one of the most misunderstood and misjudged characters is Bharat. That he was completely devoted to Lord Ram. And when his mother did all this planning, he was not even there. He was in his mother's name is Kekai, and I think she came from a place also that was named Kekai Desh. So it's said that Kekai Desh was called Kekai because of the overabundance of peacocks over there. The peacocks, the sounds they make is K, K, so that's why it got the name K. Said to be in the area of the conjoint between Europe and Asia, Eurasia, and towards the Europe side. So he was over there at the time, and he had never indicated that he had any aspirations for the kingdom, and quite the opposite. He was very, very content in serving Lord Ram. And for whatever reason, Kekai, because of Mantrash, he did all this intrigue. And when he came back, there was so much of criticism that he had to face. His guru, Vashishta, he criticizes him. Kaushalya, whom he considered as his mother, criticizes him. When Lakshman was living in Ayodhya, he was not living in the palace. He had made a hut on the banks of the river Sarayu, and he would get up at 1:30 in the morning and take a bath in the river. And it is said that the reason he did that was because the citizens of Ayodhya would throw stones at him. So just in order to avoid that, he would get up early in the morning. When Dashrath was giving up his body, he had forbidden Bharat to do his last rites. because he, in his mind, thought that all this is the intrigue of Bharat. That he has put up his mother for it, gone to Kaikeyi, and then he will come and take over the kingdom. So much of criticism, so much of anger constantly directed against Bharat, and he patiently bore all of it. So Bharat was, of course, the king when Lord Ram was not there. He could have punished the citizens who were throwing stones at him. He could have had them arrested or killed. But he did not. Instead, he adjusted his own situation. When he went to beg for Lord Ram to come back, then Lakshman was getting ready to kill him. But he was patiently explaining his position over and over again. And for the 14 years that he ruled in an environment that was completely hostile from all ends. And if you look at it from Bharat's perspective, there was no mistake that he had done. So Bharat represents performing devotional service in an adverse environment. Now Bharat, of course, had a very strongly adverse environment, but devotees also have to face these challenges on an ongoing basis. The environment is not always conducive. You have to go to work. The work environment can be passionate, or the extended family may not support. Sometimes the spouse does not support. So there are different kinds of adversities. And what was Bharat's weapon against this adversity? That he had patience. He had patience and tolerance. So he did not go around trying to justify his position over and over again. So in the Ramayana, we rarely see Bharat. He criticizes his mother, but we rarely see him put up a defense for himself. We see him do by his action what he thinks is right. But we never see him coming up and making an impassioned speech saying that I am not at fault and actually I am the victim over here. But he simply tolerates. And what is the result of that tolerance? That he gets the mercy of Lord Ram. When Lord Ram comes back, he fully accepts him. In fact, he takes permission of Bharat before entering Ayodhya. If you want, I will come. If you don't want, I am happy not entering Ayodhya. So that is the power of performing bhakti with patience. In the material world, more often than not, there are adversities to spiritualities. Sometimes from within, sometimes from without. Sometimes the mind does not cooperate, sometimes the senses does not cooperate, or sometimes the factors around us do not cooperate. But if one persists with patience, then the load that one is carrying. So Bharat was carrying the load of all this infamy and criticism. That load gets converted into the load of the love of the Lord. So this is a bit of a glimpse of the culture in Ayodhya. So in Ayodhya, the culture is that of Sanskriti. Sanskriti is that of sacrifice and restraint and life of vows. We see restraint in Bharat, we see sacrifice in Lord Ram and Lakshman. We see vows in Dashrath. And then in Shatrughan. Shatrughan, the word Shatrughan means, Shatru means weak, enemy, and Ghan means defeat. So one who has defeated enemy. The enemy is false ego. Shatrughan is one who had defeated the enemy of false ego. In the Shri Sampradaya, they actually consider Shatrughan to be superior to Lakshman. Because who was Shatrughan devoted to? He was devoted to Bharat. So they say that Lakshman was serving the personality of Godhead, but Shatrughan was serving one who was serving the personality of Godhead. So he was taking the position of Das Anudas. It is being in contact with the personality of Godhead. It is enlivening and exhilarating, and you're basically at the top of the food chain, so to speak. You're serving the master of masters, the number one. But Shatrughan, he was serving Bharat to serve Lord Ram. That is even more difficult. Sometimes devotees say that I like serving deities better than serving devotees. Why? Because deities don't give you feedback. They're always happy. More salt in prasadam doesn't matter. The dressing not good doesn't matter. They're still happy. But devotees give a lot of feedback. Yeah, Prabhu, prasadam not so good. And another sabji would have been better. And kirtan, maybe this would have been a little bit better at this time. So serving devotees is more difficult, but it is more rewarding. Because Krishna says, he says in Adi Puran that those who consider themselves to be my devotees are not really my devotees. Those who consider to be the devotee of my devotees are really my devotees. Because there is that sense of hidden ego that comes in when somebody says, I am a pure devotee of Krishna. Or there should be nobody between me and Krishna. That's why Srila Prabhupada did not encourage his followers to listen to bhajans by Meera Devi. Not because he had doubts about the purity of Mirabai or that she was not an exalted devotee. He recognized the fact that she was an exalted devotee. But her mood was, there is me and there is Krishna. And the mood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inculcated was, there is me and there is the devotees of Krishna. That the service to the devotees of Krishna is actually higher than the service of Krishna. So humility is very, very important, epitomized by Shatrughan. In the entire Ramayana, Shatrughan speaks maybe 3 or 4 lines. Very, very few lines. He's always silent. He's there. He's present with Bharat, always serving, but very, very rarely coming to the forefront. So this mood of humble service is epitomized by Shatrughan. So this is the Sanskriti of Ayodhya, the Sanskriti of service, the Sanskriti of love and forgiveness. When Lord Ram was with Vishwamitra, and he went to Mithila and saw Sita Devi for the first time, he actually turned and complained to Lakshman that what I'm feeling is not correct. So Lakshman said, how is that possible? How can you feel something that is incorrect? So Lord Ram says, when I look at a woman, I look at her as my mother. But when I'm looking at Sita, I'm not able to get that feeling. And then he said that the only reason could be that she is destined to be my wife. So this is when they went for the Swayamvar, and there was this big bow that King Janak had received from his ancestors coming from Shiva. The bow was so heavy that it said that 350 people had to lift it. And once Sita Devi, she wanted to pluck a flower from a tree and her hand could not reach. So she went inside and with the left hand she lifted the bow and then she used it as a stick to shake the tree, get the flower down. So the guards who were guarding the bow, they almost fainted. So they went and told Maharaj Janak about this. So Maharaj Janak was extremely concerned. He said that, how can I marry an ordinary person to my daughter? Because if she has that kind of strength, she will crush anyone with her embrace. So that's why he put this condition, that the person should be at least as strong as her, if not stronger. So when Vishwamitra came with Ram and Lakshman, then Vishwamitra told Lord Ram, you go and see the bow. And Lord Ram being so it said that a guru can have a first-class disciple who hears the instructions of the guru, understands the mood of the guru, and acts accordingly. Then there's the second-class disciple, and this is what Lord Ram did, that when Vishwamitra said, you go and see the bow, then he understood that Vishwamitra wants him to go and pick up the bow and string it. Of course, he breaks it, but the competition was for stringing it. So that's the first-class disciple. Second-class disciple does exactly what the guru asks him. You go and look at the bow. The disciple would have gone, looked at the bow and come back and said, yes, I saw the bow. And third-class disciple is that the guru says, you go and look at the bow. And disciple says that, why should I go and look at it? You go and look at it. Or can I show you a picture of the bow? So does not do what the guru asks. So when Lord Ram broke the bow, so at that time Lord Ram was 12 years old. And Sita Devi was 6 years old at the time. So when he broke the bow, then Sita Devi came with the garland. And Lord Ram said, no. First, I need to get permission from the elders. Only then can I just came here because my guru asked me to see the bow. And I seeing it, I stringed it and broke it. But for marriage, I need to get permission. And of course, Vishwamitra agreed. So when the marriage ceremony was happening, and this is the origin of a practice that is even now, it's done mostly in humor, that when Sita Devi came to garland Lord Ram, so Lord Ram being a Kshatriya, Kshatriyas do not bend down, so he was standing straight and Sita Devi was not tall enough to put the garland around Lord Ram. So then Lakshman, at that time, he bends down and touches Lord Ram's feet. And of course, when Lakshman touches his feet, then Lord Ram bends forward to give him his blessings. And then Sita Devi quickly garlands Lord Ram. And when it was Lord Ram's turn, then Janak, he actually stood behind Sita Devi and pushed her to the front and said, "Here, put the garland." And the acharyas say because Janak was worried because Sita Devi was so beautiful that anybody who would see her would get bewildered. And Janak was concerned that Lord Ram, after seeing Sita Devi, would get bewildered and garland somebody else because they were Sita Devi's sister and others. So the acharyas say that Janak thought that Lord Ram would now see Sita Devi everywhere. So he might garland somebody else, and then of course he would have to accept her as a wife. So Janak was standing firm behind Lord Sita Devi with his hands on her shoulders and pushed her front, saying to Lord Ram, "Here, garland, here." So at least in the north, I don't know in other parts, this garlanding ceremony is still a lot of fun that goes on. That especially if the boy is tall, then the boy will not bend down, and the girl tries to garland, and then finally, when the boy's turn comes, then the girl's brother or father, they stand behind the girl and they kind of push her to the front to get that garland. So it's said that in the spiritual world, once Lakshmi Devi had complained to Lord Vishnu, saying that we have no privacy. And Lord Vishnu said, "What are you saying? You have no privacy. You are along with me all the time." And Lakshmi Devi said, "Yes, I am along with you all the time, but then so is Ananta Shesh. And he has 1,000 hoods and he has 1,000 eyes and he's constantly looking upon us. There is no privacy." So Lord Vishnu started laughing and said that, "Don't worry. In a future incarnation, we will have a time in which we will have complete privacy, and even Anant Shesh will not be able to disturb us." So when they went for this 14 years of Vanvas, even though Lakshman is incarnation, or Anant Shesh is incarnation of Lakshman, so even though Lakshman was there, but he was always away. He would stand guard in front of the hut, and never obviously entered the hut. It's also said that when they were walking in the jungle, then Lord Ram's lotus feet were so delicate that Sita Devi was concerned, and she said that you should let me walk in front of you. Generally, a wife walks behind the husband, but she said, "You should let me walk in front of you." So Lord Ram was a little surprised, saying, "Why do you want to walk in front of me?" And she said, "There are thorns in the jungle, and your feet are so delicate that they might hurt your feet. So I will walk in front of you and destroy all the thorns." And the acharyas say that the biggest thorn was Ravan, and Sita Devi destroyed that thorn. Of course, Lord Ram did not accept Sita Devi's offer, so she would always walk between Lord Ram and Lakshman. Lord Ram in front of her and Lakshman behind her. So the other parva here is in Ramayana is Kishkinda. So just like the culture of Ayodhya is Sanskriti, the culture of Kishkinda, which is the kingdom of Sugriv and Hanuman and Bali, the culture of Kishkinda is Prakriti. So in Kishkinda we see that the Lord comes and takes shelter of Sugriva. So why does the Supreme Lord, who can give shelter to the entire world, need to take shelter? The Acharya explained that is because Kishkinda is Prakriti. Prakriti is the material world. And they say that Lanka is like the material body. The 10 heads of Ravan represents the 5 karmendriyas and the 5 jnanendriyas. And Ravan represents the conditioned mind, and Sita Devi represents the jiva. So when the jiva is conditioned, the jiva is captured by the conditioned mind, just like Sita Devi was captured by Raman and threatened. So the 5 indriyas of karma and the 5 indriyas of jnana, they keep the jiva captured in the conditioned mind. And the Lord, out of his compassion, wants to rescue the conditioned soul. Just like Lord Ram wants to rescue Sita. But he is not able to rescue her without the help of Sugriv. So, without the Lord coming into the Prakriti himself, he is not able to rescue the conditioned soul. Even though the Lord is all powerful, but is not able to rescue the conditioned soul without himself coming into the material world. Not only does the Lord have to come into the material world, but he also takes shelter. So we see Ram taking shelter of Sugriva. So what does Sugriv mean? Sugriva means throat. Sugriv means one with the beautiful throat. So sound, it is said, has four aspects: Para, Pashanti, Madhyam and Vaikari. So Para is Nabhi, where it is said that the conception of sound originates. Pashanti is heart, Hridaya, where the conception becomes an idea. Madhyam is the throat, where the words formulate. And Vaikari is when it is spoken or it is external. So Sugriva as the throat represents the word, and Hanuman is Vayudev. So the air is the media for carrying sound. So even though the Lord is all powerful, he depends on those who are the carriers of the sound of the messages in the Vedas to reclaim the jivas. So the Lord depends upon Sugriv and Hanuman. Sugriv is sound and Hanuman is the carrier of sound to rescue Sita Devi, who represents the conditioned soul. So this is the humility of the Lord, that he is allowing the jiva the right to exercise their free will. If he interfered with the free will, then he could say, okay, whether you like it or not, you're back to the spiritual world. Right? But the Lord does not want to interfere with the free will. So what does he do? He himself comes and takes shelter of the material world. He depends on the sadhus who will carry the message of the Vedas and distribute it through the media of sound. He depends on the chanting of the mantras that will free the conditioned soul. And then the Lord carries them back to the spiritual world. So Sugriv is a representative of the Lord who is assisting him in this service. Now when we look at the character of Sugriv, we see that he has imperfections. What are the imperfections? So one, we see that when Sugriv came to meet Ram and Lakshman, Then he offered a seat to Lord Ram, but not to Lakshman. Because he considered that I am a king, Ram is king, so he considered them as equal. And Sugriva had that Sakhyaras, the friendly relationship with Ram, considered him to be a peer, but he neglected Lakshman. And Lord Ram noted that, of course. So later on, we know that past time that Ram said, you go and fight with Vali and I'll kill Vali. So Sugriva goes and he fights with Vali. Lord Ram doesn't kill Vali. And Vali really beats up Sugriva and he comes back all bruised and hurt. And he goes to Ram and says, what's wrong with you? You just promised me. And Ram said, but you and Vali look exactly the same. So how could I have killed? I could have mistakenly killed you. So then Sugriva said, what's the solution? So Lord Ram said, you go and ask Lakshman to put a garland around your neck. That way I'll know it's you. So he said, okay. So he goes to Lakshman and he says, put a garland around my neck. So Lakshman says, okay. So Lakshman made a garland. And when Lakshman raised his hand to put the garland, then Sugriva bent before Lakshman to accept the garland. So by this, even though he did it unknowingly, but by giving obeisances to Lakshman, Sugriva now got the favor of Ram. So Lakshman is Balram, who is the representative of the Guru. So unless the Jiva gets the blessings of the Guru, they will not get the protection of the personality of Godhead. Only once they get the protection of the Guru do they become distinguished. Otherwise, the Lord Ram said that there is no difference between you and Vali from where I stand. So there are so many jivas. From the Lord's perspective, he is not favoring anybody. Samam sarvabhuteshu. That is the same to everybody. But then there are some jivas who have this garland around them. What is that garland? That garland that has been put around their neck because of their submission to a bona fide Guru. Now they have the specific protection of the Lord. So only by getting the mercy of the Guru does one get the mercy of the Lord. Another thing we also see in Sugriva is that he promised after Ram killed Vali, Sugriva became the king, and then he promised Ram that yes, I will search Sita out, no worries. And then after that there was the rainy season, and Sugriva was enjoying with Ruma and Tara, intoxicated, and he forgot all about his promise. That is the nature of the conditioned soul, Prakriti, forgetfulness. That you forget your duty, forget your relationship. In times of difficulty you change, you turn to the Lord. And when the difficulty passes away, you forget about all the promises and commitments you have made to the Lord. So Sugriva was well-intentioned but fallible. And that is the difference between Ayodhya and Kishkinda. Both Ayodhya and Kishkinda, the people are well-intentioned. But Ayodhya, they do not fall. In Kishkinda, they are fallible. They are prone to fall. That is the difference between Sanskriti and Prakriti. So after the 4 months of the rainy season pass, Ram gets angry and says that he's not doing anything. And let me go and deal with him. And Lakshman says, no, I will go and deal with him. And if he's not cooperating, I will kill him. So Ram says, no, don't kill him. Just go and talk to him. So Lakshman goes, and Sugriva, of course, has his guards everywhere. So they run and tell Sugriva that a very angry Lakshman is coming towards you. So and Sugriva was like, why is he angry? What did I do? So he's genuinely, Sugriva is confused because he has actually forgotten that he has offended the Lord. So then Tara says that let me go and first talk to Lakshman, and Hanuman gives Sugriv advised that as soon as Lakshman comes, you fall at his feet. So when Lakshman enters, then Tara comes. And Lakshman is a little bewildered because she's a woman. And he's very angry, all coming to fight with Sugriv. So he controls his anger. And Sugriv and Tara, she quotes many verses talking about the fallibility of men and human nature and lust. Gives the example of Vishwamitra, and she says, my husband is a monkey, so please forgive him. And then Sugriv comes and he immediately falls at Lakshman's feet. And then Lakshman says, don't worry. That, like you promise, you do it and everything will be okay. That's the relationship of the Lord with the conditioned jiva. That the Lord is ready to forgive again and again and again. It's not that Lakshman killed Sugriv. That, okay, you had your chance, you have lost it, now no more chances. So similarly, the Lord continues to give chances to the jiva patiently, and the nature of the jiva is that he keeps forgetting. Later on, we see that when Sugriv is arranging for the search party for Sita Devi to go out, he's giving very, very detailed instruction to people that over here you will go, you will see this, and there you can go, and there is a kingdom like this. And Ram is like surprised. He said, how do you know all this about everywhere? So Sugriv says that when Vali was chasing me, I was traveling everywhere to escape from him. And that's how I developed all this familiarity. But now I am fortunate to use it in your service. So similarly, a jiva, they may develop so many skills as part of their material survival. But the perfection comes when they're able to use the same skills in the service of the Lord or his devotees. So we see the culture of Ayodhya as Sanskriti. We see the culture of Kishkinda as Prakriti. Now the culture in Lanka is Vikriti. So Ayodhya has culture and Lanka is like vulture. There's no gratitude. The focus over there is selfish pleasure at the cost of pain to others. So in both places there is enjoyment. In Ayodhya there is enjoyment. In Lanka there is enjoyment. But in Ayodhya the enjoyment is inclusive with everybody. In Lanka the enjoyment is exclusive. That I enjoy and you suffer. So Ravan initially, he had no desire for Sita. He was happy with his wife, especially Mandodari, who was considered to be one of the most beautiful women in the universe, actually. But it was Supernakha who came and spoke over and over again and created this lusty desires in him. So Supernakha represents this false messaging. This that there are people who say that this material world is the epitome of perfection. You just need to know where to enjoy. Or they try to dress up the material world. They're the spiritualists who basically try to dress up the material world as the place of ultimate enjoyment. That you can go into a forest and live there happy with trees and rivers, and that is as good as perfection. That is all false propaganda. Because anyway that you live in the material world, you will still face Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. Just like Supernakha giving all good news and bad news mixed with one another, appealing to Ravan's false ego and lust. She created all these desires. It's like the advertisements of the days that, the whole purpose of advertisement is to create a demand. The person may not need the product, but is presented in a way the person says, I cannot live without that product. And then he works extra hard to get that product and then gets caught into that cycle, then moves to another product. And that was the nature of Ravan. The name Ravan means that one who makes other people cry. So Ravan had received 18 curses from different personalities. Once Ashtavakra, he's a sage whose body was bent at 8 places. So once he was going, and Ravan was laughing at him and saying that your body is so crooked, I can kick you and make your body straight. And Ashtavakra cursed him, saying that your body will be kicked from head to foot by a monkey. So later on in the Ramayana, Angad, once he goes to spy on, goes as a messenger of Lord Ram, before that, as a messenger, actually, he goes as a spy. And he goes and kicks Ravan, actually. He kicks him from head to toe with his foot. And then when Ravan captures him, then he spits into his eyes and runs back. So he reports to Ram and he says, I did this, and Ram is shocked. He says, why did you spit into his eye? Angad says, I'm a monkey. What else would I do? Also, we see that when Sita was in Lanka, she would always hold a straw between herself and Ravan. So Acharyas give various reasons why she held the straw. So one was to create formality, and they give 7 reasons. That one is that to have this sense of formality and etiquette. That cultured women would be behind, with strangers, they would be behind a curtain, or they would have the dupat, what's it called, the pallu. They would have a pallu around their head. So she would create this sense of formality and etiquette by maintaining the straw. Ravan was very proud of his opulence, that Lanka was the city of gold, and Sita Devi held up the straw saying that this is what it means to me. All that gold and wealth you have, it is like a straw. And she would also hold up the straw to convey her own regard for him, that you think you're a very powerful person. For me, you're insignificant like a straw. She would also hold up the straw to show that that anyone without morals is like an animal, and the food for animal is straw. So this should remind you of your food. And then she also held up the straw to remind him that very soon your city of Lanka will be burnt. So use this straw to make a hut for yourself. And finally, it's said that Sita Devi was conveying that the Lord, as Nrsingadev, he appeared from a pillar, and my Lord as Ram can appear from a straw and kill you anytime. So once Ram went to the house of Vibhishan, and he saw that the house was covered with Ram, the walls were covered with Ram, he got very angry, saying that you're my brother, you're under my patronage, and in your house you have written the name of my enemy everywhere. And Vibhishan says, no, this is not what you think. So the Ra is for Ravan and the Ma is for Mandodari. So I am just glorifying the perfect couple. So Ravan was very happy. And he said, okay, from now onwards, every house in Lanka should have Ram written on their walls. So this is the nature of devotees, that they're expert in engaging others in service, even without their conscious participation. It's like the devotees, when they were doing Rath Yatra. So the cart was being built out in the street, and people who were passing by, they would just call them and say that, can you hold this wheel for me while we nail it down? And can you just pick this box and give it to me? And Jayananda Prabhu was expert in this, and so many actually people became devotees through that. Jayapataka Swami, he was at that time, he was traveling around there in San Francisco, and similarly he was engaged. Somebody said, just come and help build this chariot, and then he started building and talking to the devotees. So that's why in this way devotees are expert in engaging everybody in service. So Vibhishan, when he went to surrender to the Lord, he went along with his 4 ministers. And it is said that they represent the 4 aspects of surrender. The first 2 are pointing to those who is taking shelter, and the third and fourth is for the one who is giving shelter. So the first is akanchanatvam, that having the sense that I don't have anything. One should not take shelter thinking that I have a lot, but still I'm taking shelter. But akinchanvatvam is I actually have nothing. And the second is aninagatatvam, that I have no other place to go. So you are my only shelter. Not that Monday to Tuesday I have your shelter, Wednesday and Thursday I have shelter of somebody else. So people who worship devas, demigods, they have multiple shelters. Like on Mondays they take shelter from Lord Shiva, and Tuesdays they will take from Santoshi Mai, and then Fridays they will take from somebody else. But the mood of shelter to the Lord is aninagatatvam, that you are my one and only shelter. And what is the quality of the one who is giving shelter? First is saralta, or simplicity. That when somebody comes to take shelter of the Lord simply gives him shelter. At that time the Lord does not like open up the computer and pull up the file and say that, okay, this time you did this, that time you were supposed to do this and you were not doing this. So all the past is not even relevant. So when Ravan came to Ram, then Sugriv said, don't give him shelter. He's probably cahoots with Ravan. And Ram said, but he has come to take shelter. And he said that if someone comes before me and says even once, I am yours, then I accept him for the rest of eternity. That is my ardent vow. So the Lord is giving us hope that Vibhishan was born in a culture of Vikriti. He was born in a demoniac family. But he had the right intentions and he surrendered in the right mood. So directly from Vikriti he went to Sanskriti. He transcended Prakriti immediately. So we may be in the most fallen situation, but we are never too fallen for the Lord to accept us because of this quality of saralta, simplicity in him. And the last quality is Shakti, the power to give shelter. So when you're taking shelter of someone, then you, of course, the person should be powerful enough to give you shelter. So when Sugriv told Ram that Vibhishan may trick you, Lord says that he says that with the edge of my finger I can crush everyone. So what is there? What is there for me to fear from Vibhishan, and what is there for Vibhishan to fear from anyone else? When he has taken shelter of me, he is completely protected. Only the personality of Godhead has that power. Nobody else has that power. Everybody else is taking shelter from someone. But only the Lord has this power to give absolute shelter. So between the relationship between Ram and Bharat, we see Sanskriti, the ideal relationship of serving. Between Vali and Sugriv, we see the relationship of Prakriti. So what happened in Prakriti is that the Lord approached and helped in return of the service that was rendered. So Sugriv did not approach Lord Ram. Lord Ram approached Sugriv. But when Sugriv executed the service, he received the protection. That's the nature of the jivas who are in the conditioned state, in the material worlds. And then between Ravan and Vibhishan, we see that for those who are in Vikriti, or those who are fallen in the modes of ignorance, the Lord waits for them to take initiative. So Lord Ram did not approach Vibhishan, but Vibhishan approached Lord Ram. Once Vibhishan approached Lord Ram gave him complete shelter. So the Lord waited for Vibhishan to come and then gave him complete surrender. So I'll stop here. I know I went a little bit perhaps over time, and see if we have any discussions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Avinash Balan, Hare Krishna to everyone.
Hari Bol Prabhu.
आप बता रहे थे कि सीता माता used to walk behind Ram. That was very nice. So would you please tell us, Rita Mataji to walk behind me too? So that she can attain that.
So, Srila Prabhupada, so I know you're joking, but it's a good question you're asking. Srila Prabhupada once said that in the modern day and age, everyone wants their wife to be Sita, but nobody wants to be Ram. So
I agree with you. First they have to be Ram before they expect somebody to walk behind them.
but both of you are working together, which is also very nice.
You have to be a Ram before you want me to walk behind you.
Okay. Anyhow, I just wanted to have some fun.
I know.
Thank you so much. That was really educational what all we learned in this. Thank you, Prabhuji. That was very nice.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. You guys said the whole Ramayana in summary, which is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. That was really nice lecture. I really appreciate it. I have a quick question, and I guess might have missed it. You explained very, very nicely the analogy. I mean, I think with Ravan and conditioned mind, and I guess I didn't understand the follow-up how to kind of the conditioned mind and the thoughts which are kind of for devotees and how that is compared to Ravan, right? Like completely trapped within the prison. So I was just trying to understand the follow-up notes, what you made about it, how exactly, one can get free from those things. So could you, can you repeat that? Can you explain that process?
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you. So the analogy or the metaphor that is given, and I think you explained it, you got it also, that Sita Devi represents the jiva, and the jiva is captured in the conditional state by the mind, which is represented by Raman, and the 10 heads of Raman are the 5 senses, and the 5 working senses and the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. And essentially the jiva is captured in the city of gold, which is Vikriti, captured over there. But so what was Sita's position? That she was patiently waiting for Lord Ram to rescue her. So if the jiva with full faith patiently waits for the Lord's mercy to come, then, so first Hanuman came. First the Lord will send his representative and say, don't worry, everything is okay. The Lord is coming. And then the Lord himself came, destroyed the whole city of Lanka, destroyed Ravan, rescued Sita Devi. So if the jiva with faith in the Lord patiently waits, listens to the instructions of his representatives, and inevitably the Lord will come and take the jiva back to the spiritual world.
So is that jiva you comparing, Prabhuji? Is that kind of more of a conscious mind as compared to the unconscious mind when we talk about the
No, the jiva is the soul. Like
soul? Okay.
is the soul. Actually, the conditioned jiva is the soul. So you look at the situation of the conditioned soul, that the conditioned soul is captured in this body. And while it is captured in this body, it is held captive by the mind and the senses.
Okay.
Right? So that's like Sita Devi captured in Lanka by Ravan and his 10 heads. And once the jiva starts listening to the representative of Krishna, just like Sita Devi, she welcomed Hanuman and waited patiently. She never lost faith that Ram will come and rescue. So when the jiva, with full faith that the Lord will come and rescue, so then Lord Ram came, destroyed the whole city of Lanka, destroyed Ravan with all his heads, took Sita Devi back. So similarly, the Lord will destroy this conditioned body, conditioned mind, material senses. So the jiva with his original spiritual senses can rejoin the service of the other devotees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just a question like since Vibhishan from like Vikruti directly went into the Sanskriti, but for us like we are also in some way like in Vikruti, but do we go through the Prakriti to reach to the Sanskriti? Because direct looks like not it's difficult.
You're right, Prabhu. It's difficult, but that pastime is shared to show that it's not impossible. So Vibhishan's qualification was shelter. That he took shelter of Lord Ram, even though there was opposition, there was suspicion, but Vibhishan was firm in his desire to take shelter. So, regardless of where the jiva is, Vikriti or Prakriti, taking shelter of the Lord gets the person in direct association with the mercy of the Lord. So that pastime is spoken about from the context of the potency of taking shelter.
Prabhu, on the same line, thank you so much, Prabhu, for a beautiful lecture of Ramayana. So in the same line, what Dhaval Prabhu and my Prabhu asked, like similar, like Vibhishan had so much faith in Lord Ram, and he totally surrendered, and that's why he didn't had any fear of any kind. That Lord Ram is there, so no fear. But for like people like us who are so much into Maya, we are not able to surrender, and we always have fear that this will go away, that will go away, and like how to have that like be on that step of being fearless. Though we are doing bhakti slowly, one step at a time, but like
Yeah,
little.
that's so. So thank you for the nice question, and the answer is in the question also. That's the way that which we can take complete surrender is by following the process of bhakti. Right? As we do bhakti, then our shelter from taking. So right now we are in the position that we sometimes take shelter of Krishna, sometimes we take shelter of ourselves. That I'll do this. I'll take care of it. Sometimes we take shelter of other people, and as we practice bhakti more and more, the first two qualities of shelter that Vibhishan demonstrates. One is akinchanatva, that he says I have nothing. So which basically means that he's not taking shelter of himself anymore. And Akinchan Gatva, which is that I have nowhere else to go, which means that he took exclusive shelter. So by the practice of bhakti, we notice in our own lives that as we do more and more sadhana bhakti, both these qualities become stronger. We also develop humility and also develop faith in the protection of Krishna. So it's a process. For Vibhishan, it was a stage because he is an exalted personality, of course. For us, it's a process that will take us to that stage. Thank you. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we can chant one round together. If you can unmute yourself.